Hi, today we're going to be talking about using database sources. Let's look at our specific agenda for today. We're going to make sure that you can get EasyBib set up. You've probably used it before, but we need to create a new bibliography for this project. We're going to go over some database searching tips, how you can take your search strings that you've created and use those in the database. We're going to look at the note-taking grid, which you've probably used before. We're going to talk about the expectations for the grid for this specific project, and then you're going to have the rest of the period in class to take database notes. Our Do It Now, I'm going to ask that you open up your questions, keywords, and notes handout that you received in Classroom. It has all the different colored boxes in it. You wrote a question, you identified keywords in this handout. So in that handout, I want you to scroll down until you find the section with the green boxes. And one of the things you may not have gotten to in class was writing a search string. So we're going to start off this lesson by looking at the search strings box. And if you haven't written a search string yet, this is a reminder that a search string is when you take a series of keywords. So you have multiple columns and you take one keyword from each column and you connect those keywords using the word and. So for example, my search string might be school vending, schools, and vending machines, and junk food. That might be a search string I would write. So if you haven't written any search strings yet, I'd like you to write 3 or 4 search strings. If you've already completed your search strings, then I'd like you to use this time to review them and pick the one that you want to start with because it seems like it's going to be most promising. All right, so in talking about search strings, we are going to transition a little bit and we are going to talk about works cited pages. We have probably done a works cited page before. This is an example of what a works cited page looks like. A works cited page is always going to be the last page of your research paper. And a works cited page lists all the different sources that you mention or use or talk about in your paper. So works cited are useful for the reader because the reader can go back and find out more about the sources you use to write your paper. So they could say, oh, I wonder when that was written. And they could go back and look into the works cited and see when that source was written. They could check to see how they could get a copy or find the original source and read the original source themselves. So we make a works cited for our reader. When you are creating a works cited page, there's lots of very specific rules you have to follow in order to format it and organize it. We follow a set of rules called MLA rules, Modern Language Association rules, and it's crazy. There's a lot you have to do to make it look just right. But to help us follow those rules, we use EasyBib. It does a lot of the work for us and a lot of the formatting for us, so it makes our life a lot easier when we go to actually spit out the finished works cited paper. So I want to show you how we're going to access EasyBib. The best way to access EasyBib is through your email. So we're always going to start in our email. You're going to click on the Rubik's Cube, and then you're going to click More, and you are going to scroll down till you see EasyBib. To open EasyBib, please always start in your email. So you can open EasyBib, and it's going to connect your Google account to your EasyBib account. The first time you do it, it's going to ask you to click Allow, but then after that, you should be good to go. So every time you sit down to do research, you should log into EasyBib, and you should open your bibliography. We have to start today by creating a new project, but if I'd already started, I would just click the word bibliography, and then I'd be good to start doing my research, and I would be able to add sources as I found them. But today we're going to click New Project, and you're going to call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Argument 2017, and you can choose a subject if you want. I don't know. I'm going to say English. And then we have to pick a default style. We're going to pick MLA 8. That's the most recent version of the rules. So we're going to say MLA 8, and we're going to click Create. So I only have to do that the first time, create a new project. And then from here on out, once I open EasyBib from my email, the only thing I have to do to get working is just click Bibliography and have this tab open on my screen. And with this tab open, I can go ahead and start adding sources. So we have talked a little bit about EasyBib and how to get EasyBib set up. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to look at using search strings and accessing the database in order to find articles. So I am going to open opposing viewpoints in context. It's going to look like this. It's the database you've been using all along. Remember, you get here from the library page. You would click on research and then database articles. So I'm going to open the database, and we're going to talk about where you do some of the searching and how you do some of the searching. So one of the first things I want to tell you is, you know how we just connected our EasyBib account to our Google account? We want to connect our database account to our Google account. So I'm going to click this button that says sign in with Google. And anytime I sit down to do research in the database, I'm always going to do this. So I'm going to click the button that says sign in with Google. And if you've never done it before, it's going to ask you to allow it, but that's only the first time. So now I'm signed in as Lindsay and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to take my search string, or one of my search strings, and I'm going to enter it here. I'm going to type in junk food. And remember, I've got to use the word and, junk food and schools, and I want to say school and vending. And I'm going to hit search. And if you're in class, everybody did this same search together so that we all have the same results to look at. So I have just hit the magnifying glass, and I'm going to get some search results. So the first thing I want you to notice is over on the right-hand side of the screen, all of my search results are divided up into different categories. So I have viewpoints. Remember, those are going to be the articles that are one-sided. I have some statistics, some reference material. I have 10 magazine articles and 10 newspaper articles. So I'm going to click the viewpoints link or the viewpoints heading and start here. So I know from my, when I came up with my notes or with my questions, that I want to look at why junk food is good for schools and why junk food is bad. So I'm going to start with this first article where it says a ban on junk food may harm school funding. So if I think this article is going to work, one of the things I want to do is I want to skim it and make sure it looks good. You'll notice that my keywords that I typed in, junk food, vending machines, schools, they're going to be in red when I scroll through the article. If you want to find other words in the article, maybe there's additional keywords you're looking for, you can hit Control F on your keyboard. So that's what I just did. Let me do it again. Control F on my keyboard, and it brings up this little search box. So if I want to go through this whole article and I want to find all the places it says soda, I can type in the word soda, and it's going to highlight in orange every time the word soda comes up. Let's try a word that maybe is more frequent in the article. So I typed in food, and you'll see it says 1 of 38. So I can hit this down arrow right here, and every time I hit down, it highlights a new instance where the word food is written. So if you're trying to skim an article quickly, you can use Control F to do that. All right, so I've determined this article is good. Before I actually start taking notes, there's a couple things I want to do. Under Tools, I want to hit Download, and I want to say Save to Google Drive and then Download. So I've saved the article so I can get back here later. And then the other thing I want to do is see where it says Citation Tools. This is where I'm going to add it to EasyBib. So I'm going to click Citation Tools, and where it says Export To, I'm going to select EasyBib, and I'm going to click Export. And you are going to notice that the EasyBib tab opens, and in this project I just created for Argument 2017, there's my citation. Okay? And I want you to look at the citation because you are going to need some of that information. We're going to need to have this citation up for when it's time to create, to start our note-taking grid. So I'm going to leave this tab here because I want to show you something. All right, so now it's time for me to actually start taking notes. I've got my article added to Google Drive. I've exported the citation. And in the next section of this video, we're going to break this video into 2 parts. We're going to talk about how you use the note-taking grid. So we are going to stop here, and we will pick up with using the note-taking grid. Maybe.